Hello, it's Joey and today we are making envelopes with pockets, and I've got some lovely envelopes with pockets that I'm excited to share with you today. They have a drop down like this and they have an expanding pocket, and they're just made from regular book pages, so you need a couple of book pages per envelope pocket. These are the ones that I've been using, but you can pretty much use any sort of book page you like. They have a pocket on the back as well, just here, and that means you can glue it to your journal but still add lots of goodies inside that pocket, so you can add lots of stuff in there. In the middle, as you open it up, I've collaged here and here, so I've added some pretty papers. You could use your scraps, but I've left quite a lot of space for journaling, which I really enjoy, so the space to write here and the space to write here. I've also added a closure to these, and I've added two types of closure, so I had to go with a circular one with a brad, and I've also made it up with an eyelet and a really pretty colour of thread there, and I'll show you how to make both of those. I have some process steps for you to make life easy, so feel free to take a screenshot of these and I'll just reference them as we go through, and in the description box down below you might find a discount code for some of the supplies that we're using today to make these fun envelope pockets. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the outer part of the envelope pocket, so the piece that drops down and the flap and the main body of the back. So to do that I'm going to take one book page. These book pages, if it helps you, are about 15 centimetres by 23.5, and I'm going to take one, let's take this one, and put it right in front of me with the text upright, and then I'm going to pick it up and just turn it over like that. So now the text is the wrong way up. I'm going to take this edge that is nearest me and fold it up so that we take a little bit more than a third of the distance here of the entirety of the book page. So I think we can probably do this by eye. I've done quite a few and I've not got it wrong yet. I'm taking just over a third of the total height of the book page here, and then I'm going to fold this piece over to make the flap of the envelope here. And what I want to do is fold this here, but do it in a way where there's a bit of a gap between the top of this front and the flap itself. So to do that I find it easiest if I turn this over and then just fold that flap back, but don't fold right up to the top of this. Give yourself a couple of millimetres gap, and all that does is give you enough give when we put this in a closure so that you can put a few things in it and it will still close nicely. So this is the fundamental outer of our envelope pocket. I want to add a couple of folds to these corners just to turn it into something that looks like an envelope, and I'm not going to measure. I'm going to fold in these corners and use the text that's on the page to just line up each of these in roughly the same place. So I'm looking at where the text is and covering up pretty much the same amount on one of these corner folds as the other. And I'm going to take my bone folder and at this point just give everything a little bit of a crease. So I've got my folds in the right place. I want to glue these two flaps down, and I find that I really need for this something sticky and relatively dry rather than a wet glue. And I'm taking my glue all the way to the point here so that when I press that down everything is glued down. I haven't got any cheeky little flaps sticking up, nothing to catch. Same on here. Just fold that down, and what we have is the outer shell of our envelope pocket with a front with text the correct way up, and indeed when we fold the flap down, the text is also the right way up here, because this is a pocket where, an envelope pocket where when we stick it onto a journal page, it's the back that we're not going to see. So that is the outer shell. Let's make the internal pocket. So like on this one, we want to make this expanding pocket, and we want it to be the perfectly right size on the inside of this envelope. So I'll take my second piece, and I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before. Sit it in front of me, the text is all the correct way up. Turn it over by folding towards you, flipping it towards you, and then fold this up. And I'm using what I've already made as a guide, so that when I decide on where to fold, so the height of this needs to be not more than the height of the front of our envelope pocket. So that would be a little bit too mean and too little. If I go to about there, I'm going to be a couple of millimetres short of this. Press it down, and the reason I do that is when this tucks inside in here, it's a little bit raised because it's sitting on top of this piece, and I don't want it peeping out. I want it to be neat and tidy at the top. Just press that down, and then I just want to tear this piece off right at the top here. So I'll fold it over, and I'll fold that back absolutely on top of, or aligned with, the edge of the paper underneath, like that. So just tear that off, and this is going to be our back pocket, so I'll put that on the side, bring this back in, and I'm going to stick this in here as an expandable pocket. So one of these, and that means what I need to do is put some glue in a vertical line on the back here. So I'll just find the middle by folding it over and putting a bit of a crease just to see. I'm being lazy, I could measure, and I'm taking that same dry glue and going vertically, so a nice amount of glue all the way to the top and from the bottom, and this will go just tucking in here, tucked right into the fold. Put it down and then press down. So we've got an expandable pocket in the right place. It just needs the edges on the right and left gluing together. So I can run a bit of glue very easily now up and down each of these, and I will take the front and press that down. And again, what we've got is text the correct way up on the inside pocket, and it's attached to the back only by that vertical run of glue that we put on. I find it takes a little minute or two for this glue to dry enough, so I'm not going to pull it open yet and pull the sides off or the back, the front off the back, but that should be plenty to give it quite a lot of fixture for playing with at putting things in. I think at this stage I will also turn it over, and we'll use this last bit. Let's not waste anything, and I'm going to add that onto the back. I'm going to use a more liquid glue for this, and because of the dimensions that we've folded, so we went slightly more than a third for the main body, slightly more than a third of the book page when we folded that first book page, everything else should fit neatly into place. I'm going to put that on the back. I've got glue around 3 sides only, and that means when I put that book page on the back, that piece there, that gives me that extra pocket on the back. So again, I've got an extra pocket on the back here, but it doesn't come too high. I can't see it, but it's enough to be able to take some extra items, and when we add it to the journal page, I can put glue all over that and still make use of this pocket. So that's the bare bones of the envelope pocket. What I need to do now is decide on a closure and make a little bit of a hole in the right place for that, and then just do some fun collage and painting. Shall we have just a very quick process check and then we know where we're up to? We've taken a couple of book pages and we've done the folding to make the outer body, including gluing down the corners for the envelope flap. And we've taken the second book page and done the bits of folding and tearing to make that inner pocket accordion style, and we've added a strip on the back as a pocket. So now what we're going to do is add a closure hole or an eyelet. So let me show you that. So the majority of the ones I've made I just happen to add a closure to, and it makes it easier to add the hole for the closure at the moment if you're going to paint it. It's just a case of making life easy. So on this one I've got a closure, just a circle with a brad, and if you're going to collage, I collage after I've added this so that we're obviously covering up the brad. If you want to add an eyelet, that goes in the top flap here. I've just added a beautiful bit of Hessian thread here, and I do think with bright colours and changing what you do, these would be great for Christmas as well. I don't know that I should even be talking about that, it's so early, it's August, but it came to mind. So for the eyelet closure, all we need, and we can do the whole of this at this stage, is to add a hole in the centre of our flap and then just put an eyelet in. Let me have a go at making the hole and adding the circular closure, because that's probably just a bit more complicated. I'm going to take a pencil and put a little mark in the middle, again just eyeballing where I want my closure to go. I'll take a needle and just press a hole, quite tough paper, make a hole in there. And I don't want to actually add the circle yet because I'm going to decorate and paint, and that would just slightly get in the way. But I've made a hole so that I don't have to do it when there's paint on the paper, just making life a bit easier. What I will do is choose one of my circles that I've been punching out, decorating cardstock, adding bits of gold, adding bits of gold paint to, and I'll just put a hole through that in the centre, and one of my mini brads can go through that. So that's just ready and waiting for our painting to be done. And now what I'm going to do is decorate the outside of this first, and then after that I can move on and add the collage in the centre. So I'm going to decorate the front here and also the envelope flap, and obviously the way in which you do your decoration is completely up to you. You don't have to do any painting, you don't have to decorate at all. What I felt like doing was adding some leaves here and branches, and I just felt like having a bit of play with some colour. And it was partly because I've done a project recently when I made these journaling cards with birds, and I had a lot of fun making the substrate behind with book pages and then creating these big leaves, and I felt like I wanted something a little bit botanical on the front here, and maybe using colour, I don't know, maybe something a bit like the large envelope pouch that I made a while ago. So I pulled out some new paints, and I'll explain what they are, and I've pulled out some new brushes, so I do have some new toys to play with today. So to some extent this was a little bit of an experimentation. I have a very narrow brush here, and this is a proper watercolour brush. I've not had anything like this before, and I'll be honest, I was quite excited to see what I could do and whether it was any different from some of the brushes I've had before, which have typically been, I think you've probably seen them, these more plastic water brushes. So I had a play and I found a little bit of technique. I hold the flap down, I put my brush into brown, and a bit similar to how we did do on the envelope pouch, just make a few gentle marks for the stem, the branches, like that. Let's have a different colour of brown, maybe bring something like that, a little bit of movement, and I can do something quite fine with this brush, which is really, really nice. So just something as simple as that, and then I let the flap come up and I carry on like this, maybe a little flow, And I'm just thinking how nice this would be to represent the start of autumn, or even as we move through October and November and December, we could turn this into something a bit more Christmassy with greens and red dots. I've got some examples to show you. So I had a play, I put some brown on and that seemed to work. Maybe pick a darker colour. And I can be so dainty with these brushes. So these brushes are they were a gift. So my video isn't sponsored, but I'm just playing with something that I was kindly sent by ZENArt Supplies. So the set that it comes from is a big one. They're called Black Tulip Mixed Shapes for Watercolours. And I will put, there we are, there's the logo. I will put the name of these in the description box down below, and I'll try to add a link. But they do add something to what, if I'm honest, to what I've already got in my supplies. They make it a bit easier to do things like this. So I'm adding a bit of a very dark brown. I think this is a dark green. I apologise if I'm in enabling mood, but I occasionally treat myself as well to new things, and I'm sometimes very, very lucky, and I'm very grateful when I'm able to play with new supplies that I am gifted. I am very, very grateful and appreciative. So I've got the bare bones of some branches there. What I've done is I've had a play with adding leaves in greens, and I also added some blue, and I think that worked really well. So I've got some blue and a green, and on some of these I've gone a bit more autumnal and added greens and some sort of ranges of browns. So whatever colours, whatever works for you. So let's pick another of these lovely watercolour brushes, and I'm going to add, oh, I've been a bit naughty and not washed that one out. Such is life. I'm going to add some green, and there is the most luscious olive green in here. Get plenty of that on. It's very creamy. So this paint set is a Kuretake paint set. Again, it's new to me, and this was kindly sent to me by Stationery Pal. I'll put a link to this in the description box, and I think I've got a discount code for this one as well. So do check this one out and see if this is something you fancy treating yourself to. So get plenty of the green on, and my technique is press and come up. I think I've done this before when I've done those other journaling cards and the envelope pouch. Just press, come up, and let the brush do the work. And there's something about these brushes, obviously they're proper watercolour brushes, I find this a bit easier than with those other ones that are not the same shape. So it's horses for courses, isn't it? Add a little bit of yellow just to lighten it up, and maybe a few little dots here and there to signal the foliage just in amongst those branches, like that. And I mustn't forget the flap at the top. Just open that up, and I'll just pick up a bit of the green, press down and come up, press down and come up, like that. Very quick, isn't it? There we go. And the other thing I've found I quite enjoy doing is splatting these with gold and also with some red dots. So obviously completely up to you, but I'm just going to have a go at that. So I've put a bit of my brown Amazon packing paper down, and I will be still using this in various collage projects. I use it in a lot of my projects. I'm just going to give it a few dots with some incredibly luscious gold paint, and this is also a Kuretake palette from Stationery Pal, and there's nothing clever about what I do. Plenty of water on it, and I give it a few of those splatty dots, like that, and like that. If you want to, I think I do, I'm going to add a bit of red, because once I'm on a roll I struggle stopping. So I'll take some of this creamy red, and this is where I say if you wanted to have some sort of seasonal angle to this. I do think you can splat with different colours and make your leaves different colours. Maybe go for this lovely cranberry colour, and I don't mind that I mix them up and make them dirty because I'm having a lot of fun. Yes. And this is why we wanted to make the hole for our closure in the centre there before we added our splats, just to make life easier, like that. Okay, that's probably enough, but what it means is I have got something that, set that aside, something that's ready for probably drying off before we add some of our collage to the inside. So I've dried it off with a heat gun, so it's dry enough to play with. What we need to do now is just finish off adding the brad and the circle, so adding the closure to the front if the circular closure is the choice that you had made. So I'll put the brad through the hole that we've already made and just fold those pins back. Just do that by hand. And it doesn't need to be too tight because we do want to have enough capacity for this upper flap to just tuck behind it, so that will be perfect. So what we need to do now is add whatever decoration you want on the middle. So I decided to use some decorative papers, but also book pages and all sorts of different book pages. Here's another idea. I had a go with some birds and I stamped on top. Let's just show you that. So you could try a bird theme. I had to go with a little bit of a seasonal theme. So I've got some different papers. In fact, I'll show you a couple of sheets to give you some ideas if you want to use digitals. But of course, you could just use scrap papers. And you may want to ring the changes with the colour of paint you use. So if, for example, you've been using blue as your leaves, which I do think works really well, then on the inside you might want to carry that blue theme through. Let me just share some of the papers I've used. I printed off a whole batch here, so I thought I'd just take a moment to share some of the glorious loveliness of some of these. It would be very selfish to keep it to myself. So there's a new set from Tracie Fox and I've ripped them up because I like these toadstools and the autumnal feel. So I've got some deer on that one. So that was a page that I've been using. I've also been using this one, so you'll see the bird and the pumpkins. I'm not necessarily, I'm not trying to say go and buy digitals. I'm just trying to say where have I got my images from, because sometimes that's helpful. So this is the new Tracie kit. Aren't they glorious colours? I do think they work really well on this envelope pocket. And then someone you may not have heard of, the shop's called IrresistiblePrints. I hope I've got that right. I'll leave a link in the description box down below. Has these absolutely beautiful images, these digitals, in her Etsy shop, and I thought these would be great for tearing up as well and using some of the patterns in our envelope pockets as we move into autumn as well. So some little squirrel, we've got the mushroom, hedgehog, fox, glorious colours, just beautiful, and some images that are capable of being cut out easily, which I find very helpful. So on the envelope pocket, I'm going to start with the bottom here, and I think I'll just put a piece down at the bottom on here. So I've just torn up some strips that are roughly the right size for my flap. I'm going back to my liquid glue. That can go on there. But I want the sense of collage, so I'm not just going to put a whole piece across here. I want to add something rippety here. So let's have something a bit rippety. This is old wrapping paper that's actually off a gift. It's not that I bought a roll. I think that can go there. It works quite well. Let's just reduce the length a bit. Not taking too much time to think, and I think that helps too. So that goes on there. Some brownness, some texture and ripped edges. Aren't they lovely? And we'll have something up here. So it's obviously up to you what you want to add. I've got a few bits of scrappy paper. Let's see what we can do. Some lovely colours in these book pages. So I'll just fold that up and maybe reduce the size a bit. Tear that off. I think that can go on that side actually. Yeah. I want to see more text. Oops. Glue on this side. Go there, and I'm going to have something over here. No, nothing, a little bit of torn stuff there, but I don't want a straight edge. I have been obsessed with collage recently, so much so that I've been filling an old school book, we call them, so an exercise book, with collage, which I think makes it a glue book. And I was wondering if you'd be interested in maybe once a month or so doing a glue book page with me, maybe with a prompt. Is collage and just ripping up bits of paper and sticking it down with glue something you'd be interested in me doing? Please, would you let me know? Let me know down below. Let's have a bit of something else. I like this because, look at that, a bit of a match. But you can do anything you like. You can see it's just peaceful and happy times when we glue paper on other paper. So how about that? And I don't even mind there's a bit sticking out here. I want a little bit of detail, so let's see what we can find. Ooh. Something on there. Where should we put it? Which means I want something up there. Quite like that. I think it just needs something on the front. How about that? If you wanted to use the other closure type at this point, you'd just add a thread. And this is my envelope with 2 pockets. I hope to see you soon.